Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew White. I'm the salesman part of the title. Each week, I sit down with CEOs and entrepreneurs to discuss and dissect their journeys, filled with triumphs, challenges, and some good old-fashioned business wisdom. Get ready to laugh, learn, and be inspired as we dig into leadership, strategy, sales, marketing, and everything in between. This is the CEO and the Salesman Podcast. Let's get on with the show. My name's Matthew. We're the CEO and the Salesman Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to Brad Shaw. Brad's been a business coach, technology business leader, and all-around nice guy. He's agreed to come on the conversation with me today to talk about how his process has gone through in relation to where he was and how LivePro is going now. So welcome, Brad.
Thanks, mate. And we clearly don't know each other very well if you've called me a nice guy already.
Well, mate, actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you about in relation to coaching, because coaching is, because for a while there was, it was a pretty unique field, and then everybody was a coach. People who were reasonably unqualified to be life coaches, who had terrible lives, actually wanted to coach me to being having a life coach. So, tell me about your experience as a life coach. You're a life coach not a life coach. You're a business coach for 13 years. How was that?
Well, firstly, let's be very, very clear. I'm not a life coach. And
No. I did correct myself there. Sorry about that.
And a number of my clients would jokingly call me their life coach. And I would quickly grab them and say, I haven't actually made my life perfect, so I'm not actually going to be trying to work on yours, but I can help you be more successful as a business coach. And so,
very cool.
I mean, the whole thing about business coaching that I think people forget is that it's a bit like a swimming coach or a football coach. It's not about helping you. It's about identifying what your goals are and pushing you to reach those goals. So I'm not going to help somebody swim until I actually know what their goal is. And with a business person, it's got to be focused around, okay, what is it that you want to achieve? And then I'd look them in the eye and say, all right, are you willing to go through the pain that's required to achieve that? If I felt that they really were willing to go through that pain, then I was actually going to be their business coach to push them past their pain barrier and get them to understand that some pain that they're feeling is normal. And if they can't handle it, then they're not ready for the job.
So what was I guess everybody's got an angle they're going to come from in relation to coaching and helping business owners sort of succeed. Did you come from a particular, an operations or a sales or what was your particular style?
The big focus I had was a leadership coach. I was put into a CEO role way too early in my career at 36. I knew that I needed a coach, so I got a coach. And the coach, and I had two more after that. And they were really great in getting me to grow up and to understand the nuances of business. But I really set out to be a leadership coach. The only thing is that you can't be a successful leader if you're not successful in business. And the lucky part about that is I'm just passionate about business. I just love the understanding and the nuances of the business ecosystem. Every single part of that business ecosystem interacts in a different way when you have different people, and you've got to understand how that works. And so it sort of went from me trying to help people become better leaders to helping people become better business leaders. And you're right, the world all of a sudden had a waterfall of people becoming a business coach, or at least a coach. And they didn't understand the ecosystem. They didn't understand business. And then it really did develop it into an occupation that I was ashamed of saying. I mean, I should say I'm a business coach because that really did sound like I'm a wanker.
Mate, it's so funny that you say that. Well, the barriers to entry are probably as low as being in marketing, right? So, I have a marketing agency, but anybody's got a MacBook is now in marketing. So there's no barriers to entry. Yeah. You can be a coach. Let's go.
Yeah. And look, I had a part of my career in HR, and then I saw a lot of people in HR being a business coach. And I thought, well, hang on, you really don't know anything about business when you're in HR. You really need to understand business. And when it comes from, you were looking for what sort of angle, I learned a hell of a lot about business from the people I coached. The
Right.
early clients that I coached really gave me a much greater discipline, particularly in sales and marketing, than I previously had. I mean, if you didn't go through working with the talented people that I worked with and learn from them, then you really weren't listening.
Yeah, right. So it's not 20 years of experience, it's 1 year of experience repeated 20 times.
Yeah, well, that's what some people have, but certainly that's, you know, I learned that every single person is going to approach something a little different because they have a different personality and they have a different culture within their team. So you have to understand and explore. And the really tough part for a CEO to become a business coach is that CEOs are used to barking out suggestions or orders. A business coach really has to ask a lot of questions and get the individual to come up with their answer. That was a tough thing to do.
Well, that's a great segue, actually. So you were a business coach, not life coach, business coach, and so you were a business coach, and now you own a pretty successful software company. How did that happen?
Very interesting story. A part of my coaching was to always use stories, and so I'd start off coaching somebody and saying, the guy that has a veterinary franchise that I coach approached that same problem in this way. And then over time, they'd all say, when are we going to meet these other people? So I then formed an elite CEO group that met every month that had outside speakers come in and speak. A part of your initiation was that you needed to do a presentation on your product. So everybody in the group understood your product. And I had a guy join the group who did a demonstration of LivePro. And LivePro was, about 3% of their business. 97% was something else.
Right.
And that something else was sold to a really large global organization who didn't want this LivePro product. And I said to the CEO, what are you going to do with that? And he said, I don't know. Do you want to do something with it? I said, why would I want to do that? I've got a great life being a business coach. Why would I want to do that? Anyway, as time went on, I was looking to help them find a CEO to manage it. And in a very corny way, I woke up at 2 a.m. with a business plan in my head for LivePro. I couldn't go back to sleep until I actually got it down. I sent it to the owner of the business and said, I think I found the guy that's passionate about LivePro. Because I do believe, Matthew, that you should not manage or be a CEO of a business unless you're passionate about it.
Yep.
And from there, I said, look, if I execute this, will you give me 20% of the business? And he said, yes. But he'd already been made rich from the sale of the other property. He didn't want to come in, other business. He didn't want to come in every fortnight and listen to what was happening in this really small part of the business that only had 8 customers. It was losing money. It needed to be rewritten. So he kept on asking why I don't buy it. In the end, we got an agreement on what the price should be, and I became a major shareholder. I don't own all of it. There's a couple of other small shareholders. And from that point, I brought 3 people that were in the company into a room and said, I know we've only got 8 customers. I know we're losing money, but we are going to be the number 1 customer experience knowledge management system in the world that organizations that want to deliver the best customer service possible want to use. And I said, and we're going to do that because we're going to be the easiest system to use, we're going to be the easiest system to manage, and we're going to be the easiest people to work with. If I could read their mind, I probably would have slumped out of that office embarrassed that they thought that there was an imbecile in the room. But as I was saying to the team today, I know parents and grandparents believe their kids are the smartest and most beautiful children in the world. Yep. And I know CEOs believe that their business is the best in the world. But, and so I might be biased, but I think we've made it. I do think that LivePro is the system. Certainly in Australia, we're the number 1 customer experience knowledge management system. LivePro delivers an answer to a customer through whatever channel they want to ask the question. I'll back away.
And how has it grown? And so how has that grown now? I mean, where are you at to, you had 8 customers and you were losing money.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have to tell me about numbers, but, how does the business look today?
I was actually thinking that the background that I should have in all of these is a global map with the LivePro flag in every country that it's in. And I'm actually going to do that. So look, I think, well, we've got a customer that is a global customer that uses LivePro in 14 different countries in 11 different languages. And we've got other global brands out of Italy, Scandinavia, UK, Asia Pacific, US that use the product all around the world. I've never known a CEO that thinks their business is going as well as it can.
Yep.
So, I think, if you get to that point, you probably are ready to retire. You really always have to believe that we can do it a lot better. And we're still pushing.
So do you find that your coaching background still bleeds through and leaks out of you when you've got the CEO hat on?
Yeah, it does. And look, every strength is a weakness. And I remember some of the people that I coach looking me in the eye and saying, Brad, this is not a coaching moment. This is a CEO moment. I believe I need to do it this way. And they were right. And there's times when I look at a coaching opportunity rather than giving that person an opportunity to work somewhere else where they're better prepared. My view is, if I've got somebody that's intelligent, has the same values culturally, and is determined to be a success, I can help them get there. And sometimes that isn't the best approach.
Oh, really? Can you give me an example, or would that be cutting too close to the bone?
Might be cutting too close to the bone. But look, I'd say, you're entering and you're growing and the business is growing really quickly. You've got to make a decision as to whether the people that are with you can grow that quickly. And I'm lucky that a big percentage of my team have been able to grow that quickly. I'm constantly looking to see if there's people that need some additional support at a more senior level. And I've got a great enough relationship with the team that I've got where they've actually come to me and said, I'm not sure I'm up to the job. And we talk about what it is that they need to get supported. And, I can think of one conversation I've had where an individual said, Brad, I think we need to have, and what they described was a senior global person running their department. And then so we explored what it was that required, and we came up with a solution to that.
Got it. So did you recruit a new person and was that person that came to you with that idea, did they then become sit underneath that new person you brought on?
The answer to that one is no, we didn't, because it would have cost me a couple of $1 million to get that person over the top. Right. So I chose to focus the revenue that revenue in a different area. But what I did was get somebody with those credentials to come in as a guide and a mentor. So I basically got that individual a coach.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So there you go. Leaked out of you again. A bit of coaching. Let's see if we can bring this person up to that.
So where do you think that there's a lot of people out there that have achieved something, and therefore their resume looks fantastic, but they don't necessarily have the opportunity to grow into another role. It's just like business owners that sell their business and start up a new one. It's not always a really simple thing to do.
So as a CEO, how focused are you on systemization to take the personality out of the role versus finding those individual performers? How do you balance those two things?
Yeah. I don't lose any sleep over helping somebody get into a role where they can be successful. So that's a polite way of saying, if you cannot be successful in the role that you're in, I don't lose any sleep in getting you out of that role. It doesn't matter.
So do you then make that work better by systemization?
No.
By actually putting in processes? Or do
No,
you say, well, create an opportunity for that person to leave and then find somebody else that can step in? So are you saying that you're more of a you like individual contributors, like highly talented individual contributors, more than the systems and structure of the business?
absolutely. And that's not suggesting that I'm right. I know it's my bias. I
Yep.
don't have a
No,
bias.
that's why I
Yeah,
asked the question.
yeah. I don't have a bias at all to believing a system will solve your problem, or a policy will solve your problem. There's many, many people who believe that a policy is the answer. And in my view, the policy is something for somebody who doesn't want to make a decision. It provides them a convenient block for them to make a bad decision or to hide behind it. The world in business, especially the more senior you get, is great. And if you have to have a policy and a guideline for everything you do, you're going to get lost. You have to be
Yeah.
comfortable in the grey.
Yeah, I love that. Fantastic. Be comfortable in the grey.
Yeah.
Our age.
Uh, unfortunately, I had to become comfortable in this grey.
Yeah, that's right. Me too. So when it comes to your senior leadership team inside the business, what level of do you provide them with coaching? Like, do you actually take them aside and help them work through ideas, or do you let them really sort of figure it out on their own? Just want to understand the
No, I
level of
think
hand holding you do.
no. As a CEO, your first job is to get them to agree on what it is that their department has to achieve and let them go away and achieve it. If I
Got it.
start telling them how to do it, then now they have me to blame. So they have to actually be able to come up with the answer for how we're going to solve that problem. And if they can't, then we talk about whether they're suitable for the role.
So going back to when you were saying that, you set the vision of the business, we're going to be in every country, we're going to be the world's most,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So is that the type of conversation you have with your senior leadership? So this is the direction. Do you then say over to you, or do you workshop it? So how does that?
Oh, right. Yeah, got it.
Like really getting into that structural stuff.
Yeah.
It's probably a bit nuanced, and
Yeah.
probably going to have 3 people actually interested in this conversation, and I'm one of them. So how do you do that?
The first thing you got to do is agree on where you're heading. So we know that we want to deliver answers to customers through whatever channel they want to ask the question.
Yep.
We know that we want to be the world's best, and we know that our mission is we're going to do it by being the easiest system to use, easiest system to manage, and easiest people to work with. Once you've got that, then you then get together and say, all right, what do we need to do in the next 5 years to continue for us to be able to achieve that? So you work the longer term plan. Then you say, okay, if that's what we think now, what is it we have to do in the next 12 months to get us closer to that? Then they have to develop the plan. And, I've got smart people in the room, so everybody can have a contribution. But at the end of the day, the person who owns that area of responsibility has to come up with a plan that then comes back to me and the team to say, okay, this is how I'm planning to do it. And any plan has to have signposts, goalposts, and deadlines. And so then you manage it. That makes my job easier then, because I know exactly what they're heading off to do. We've all agreed that it's going to have to happen, and there's a deadline for it. So it's just a matter of catching up and making sure that deadline is met, or that the deadline's respected, and we're continuing to refine it and pivot if the market requires you to pivot. You don't pivot just because you failed. You've got to actually pivot because the market has. That 5-year plan needs to be reviewed every year, because at the end of the day, particularly in software, things change. I mean,
Things change.
12 months ago, everybody was thinking that Gen AI was going to actually do up your shoelaces and make you a cup of tea in the morning. But now everybody realizes that, maybe it won't do that yet. And they're realizing that you actually can't have any Gen AI confidence unless you direct it to a fully managed knowledge management system.
Yeah, that's the hallucinations, and people are starting to really. I heard a story of a lawyer getting in trouble because they used AI to write a contract, and it was not a contract, a brief, and the case that it was actually quoting didn't exist.
Wrong. Yeah.
So and they signed it. So that's obviously
Yeah.
no names,
Well,
no court martials.
you can't use it. You can't use any AI unless you've got it connected to a source of absolute knowledge. You cannot crowdsource information if you're going to be using it in business as an authority. I mean, you can get ideas. You can use it as a brainstorming session, but you can't
First draft.
use it for business. Yeah.
Yeah, I use it almost every day, but it's always the first draft, and then then I bring it into Word and I play with it for a while before I send that out or whatever, whether I post or that article. So I say, well, give me a half a dozen ideas about this, this, and this, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
So when you talk about vision, you've set your leadership team onto a certain vision, but you also mentioned values. How do you quantify or qualify values in a conversation?
Yeah. I do believe that the values come from the founder and then the executives that take over from there. And so my meeting after this is I'm catching up with somebody that's joining us in the Philippines who probably wouldn't expect to talk to the CEO in the role that they're starting. But I was involved in their selection and definitely involved in their induction because the values are really what differentiates the business. And by that, I mean it differentiates LifePro from the rest. And it's all about, if we're going to be the easiest people to work with, what does that mean?
Yep.
And if you think about every part of that value, it's if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I promise I'm going to give you something, I deliver it. I respect you and the way and what you want to achieve. And so the values do come a lot from the vision and the mission, but it also comes from the character and the personality of the CEO. You can't help it; it just does.
Yep. Yeah, got it. So it does flow down.
Yeah.
When dealing with people overseas and other cultures, how have you found that process of expanding the business from, as you said, 8 customers, 3 people to where it is today?
It is a big challenge, and I've learned from some very, very talented CEOs that you really probably have to parachute your culture into that country. If it's going to be a big operation, we're growing quickly in the US. If it's going to be a big operation and you want to be certain that your product and your company is the same in that country, you better parachute somebody in with the same values to make sure that the organization's living it. And then you as the CEO need to make sure that you have a great touch on it. And, it's the old story that what the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And so you have to be very quick to pick things up that aren't aligned to what the values are. And you have to be very quick to identify people who aren't actually showing those values.
And so in a person who doesn't demonstrate those values, are you when you're correcting them, are you asking for, their understanding of the process there? Are you asking them? So how do you go through that process of correcting?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is always to go into something in an inquiring way. Don't make any assumptions. Yeah. Don't make any assumptions that you understand the environment that decision, that action was taken. And then in that questioning, you can get a gauge as to how that person's thinking and the approach that person was taking. And if it's just a little bit of a tweak, you can just talk about how it might be better to approach that in a different way next time. But if it's a big change, then you need to have that crucial conversation. You need to be able to say that, that's not the way we're going to be successful in this country or in this market with this approach and this vision and this values. And so next time, this is my expectation. Now, sometimes you need to make a call very quickly to say, well, that judgment call that you made
Yeah.
really isn't aligned, and it's never going to be aligned. And it might be best that you go to an organization that has a different set of values than us.
Wow. Okay. And that, I guess that's, pretty important. So
By
when
the
it
way,
comes to,
I wouldn't put it that way. I mean,
of course,
there'd be a different way, but it truly is. My job is to make sure I've got an environment where you can be as successful as possible. And if I create that environment, then I'm a lazy manager. I'm probably a more enthusiastic leader. So I want to get somebody that's already got the energy and the values and the determination and create an environment where you can be as successful as possible. And my job's made a lot easier.
so in your opinion, is that the most important thing a CEO can do? In the hierarchy of things that Brad's got to do as the CEO when he's got his CEO hat on. What are the hierarchy of needs, or what are the hierarchy of things that you think are most important?
Look, I think the CEO should always have the eye on the long-term prize and understand what value needs to be delivered now to achieve that long-term prize. So it's all about how is this department, this person, this division really contributing to the long-term goal? What value are they bringing? Because any CEO is frustrated by lots of activity, but not a lot of outcome. I am an outcome-driven CEO. I actually don't have any empathy for somebody who's saying they're working until 10 p.m. Sorry, um, because that I don't really care. You can be working until 10 a.m. if you're achieving huge outcomes. All it's telling me is that you're working hard but not smart. And it sounds brutal to put it that way, but I've probably had a lot of conversations anyway to make sure that you're focusing on the right things. It's not an executive needs to work as focused on getting the outcome as possible and then helping everybody underneath them to achieve outcomes, not activities.
Got it. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, actually. So in the last couple of years since you've owned the business,
Yep.
what's been the biggest challenge you've had to overcome?
Good question. Um, when I was coaching, what I saw was that everybody has a ratchet. You ratchet up, you get to a plateau, and then you ratchet again, or you don't even wait until you get to the plateau. You just keep on ratcheting. So I think there's different challenges all the time. And I think, the biggest challenge for any CEO or driver of a business is growth. How do we get more growth? How do we get more organizations getting the benefit from my product? And
Right.
so, there's when you get to a certain level of speed of revenue generation, then the big challenge is how do we double that? And how do we double that? And how do we double that? So I think that would probably be it. I mean, I've made a number of mistakes going into different markets and have had to learn from them. But, again, any CEO that focuses too much on the errors that they made rather than what they learned from that, dust themselves off and make sure they don't make that mistake again, it's probably not going to last very long in the CEO role.
Got it. And so is the US one of those markets you made a mistake going into and then you fixed? So tell me about
Have I
that. So
fixed
what was the
it?
error?
I think we've fixed it. The error definitely has to do with getting the right people in the right jobs.
Right.
We recruited
Is that a Jim Collins
fantastic.
style? Is that a Jim Collins style of getting the right people on the bus sort of thinking where we're going this way?
The
And
people
you build out the
the people we got were the right people on the bus. We probably put
right.
them in the wrong seats,
Got it.
and at the stage that the organisation was in, a couple of the people we didn't have seats for. They were great
Right.
people, but it
Yep.
was the wrong stage of the growth for those people to join. And yeah, we go through a big process to make sure that we get the right people. So they were all great people, and I say that without any hesitation. But there was a couple of instances where maybe the seat should have been different. But we've got a great team, at the moment. I caught up with them a couple of hours ago, and I get excited and energized whenever I interact with particularly the sales team over there.
Yeah, very good. Oh, good. I'm glad you're excited about the sales team. We're the most exciting people in the world as long as they're early in the month. That's the 16th of the month. So we're still pretty high spirits.
Yeah.
So, mate, when you're thinking about growth, do you build out speaking about seats and using that metaphor or whatever, simile maybe, when thinking about seats and dust, do you build out the org chart and the roles that need to occur and then find the people to place them in there, or find the people first and then place them in the right spots?
Definitely build out the org chart, understand what the business needs, and then put them in.
And so with that org chart, do you go, well, in 5 years' time, the business is going to look like this. This is how it's going to be delivered, all these things. Here's the vision. And then all of these roles need to sit in this structure. So now I have a gap over here and a gap over here. Is that how you think about it?
Yes and no. I will look at the business from a 5-year and 10-year horizon, but I don't look at staff from a 5-year and 10-year horizon. I look at what does the team need now and what are we going to need in the next 12 months. I wouldn't like to be predicting what we're going to need in the next 5 years. We're way too nimble at the moment for that. If we grow by a multiple of 10, maybe I'll need to be that sophisticated. But at the moment, it's about, right, how do we make this team more successful? And what additional resources are we going to need as they become successful for the organisation to be able to continue to grow at the pace we want it to grow? Got it.
What's been the most challenging role in the organisation for you to work with? Because you've got a certain personality style, certain way of thinking. Who's been the hardest person for you to really gel with?
I think the function rather than the person.
Yes.
I do think that the sales function in any organisation is the hardest. They're at the top of the food chain. They don't have to do anything for anybody else apart from bringing new clients. So there's a certain personality that you need to get into that role, and then they have the toughest role. And I don't make it any easier because I put targets on them and I push them hard as well. It's not an easy role. That's why they get paid the great money. And I really don't know. I never speak to any CEO that brags that their sales team is the best ever. There's something about business that actually puts a higher expectation on sales than it's capable of delivering. And I don't say that negatively towards sales. I say, if it's true that every CEO wants their sales team to be working better and believe that they could be working better, and maybe that the bell-shaped curve isn't right, that the CEOs need to have a more realistic understanding of what the sales is. And for me, the sales process, and I'm aligned with the sales leadership, is about a process. It's not about charisma. Yes, people buy from people. You need to have a personality. But in software sales in particular, it's about a process. Because if you're selling a service like a consulting service, then you're going to buy from you. If you're selling a piece of software that the organization has to envisage using for the next 10 years, then it's not about you. It's about how is this going to solve the problem and can we trust this system to actually continue to do it? And there's a process to that. And unfortunately, the process typically has a large family in the organization. They have a lot of people who have got an opinion on whether it should be purchased or not. And there's a lot of snipers. There's a lot of snipers on the sideline who you don't know about that are actually saying, we don't really need that. You could use this. And those snipers typically don't actually understand the benefit and don't have an interest in understanding the benefit. They just have an opinion and think that they can share it. And the other thing is that in software, if you don't get this purchase made and the contract signed today, tomorrow something's going to change. You're going to have a change of CEO, and so the new CEO says, all bets are off, I want to reevaluate everything. There's going to be, I joke, they even chose to have a cyclone or a tornado in Florida to actually slow down one of the contracts that we wanted to get signed. There's always going to be something. We've gotten a yes 5 times from one organisation, and then something happened. Or we get a yes, and then all of a sudden there's that company's made an acquisition of another company, and so that has to be slowed down. So the sales process has to understand that they need to be in control of the conversation and
Yes.
helping that organisation make that decision as quickly as possible, because if they don't, something's going to come through and sideswipe them.
What have you seen the differences? You've got salespeople here in Australia, salespeople in the US. Have you seen great differences between those two personalities or those two groups?
I don't know that I've got a broad enough group to compare against. What I've found is that the old traditional hunters, who were always hard to find, those ones that would go out and get their own leads and actually hunt, they're nowhere near as prolific as I'd hoped. And in the software world, it's so more common for the organisation to have to provide them with as many leads as possible. So, I've had to give up that concept of believing that somebody could generate their own leads, and that everybody probably needs to be delivered leads. One of the people I coached once said, is that salesperson a lion in the zoo or a lion in the Serengeti? The lion in the Serengeti can go out and find their own dinner, and they can choose what dinner they have, and they can get the most succulent dinner possible. The lion in the zoo has to get whatever they're given. And if you're going to sit and wait for an organisation to deliver leads, you're probably a lion in the zoo, but I don't see many Serengeti lions these days.
Yeah, no, you're right. How I think about that is that I've just seen a difference in buyer behavior. I mean, I started my first tech business when I was 22. That's a lot of years ago now. And the sales function did occur from beginning to end in one group. But
yeah,
we put adverts in the newspaper. Like, that's really demonstrating significant age.
What are they?
We put adverts in the adverts in the newspaper. They would phone a 1-800 number, and then the salesperson would pick that up and be able to take it all the way through. And then there was no website. There was no. We sent some brochures out. We had those types of assets. But really, these days, if a business isn't what I'm saying, if I go and look at a company, I need to see that they're on social. I need to see that they've got a whole range, an ecosystem of products and services for me to go, yep, these guys are legit.
Yep.
And so, I think, being in marketing, I probably, I don't want to be drinking my own Kool-Aid in relation to being in marketing, but it seems to be that people need to see quite a lot of content before they make a purchase decision. And I think that the cold caller who can get in and go from conception to graduation of a deal, I just don't think that can really exist in today's world unless it's a fast purchase. Unless if you're selling, you're selling something a bit short term. But for products like yours or businesses like mine, I just don't see how a cold caller can cut through and get a $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 deal by making a cold call. Whereas probably 20 years ago you could.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree with you, and have never believed in cold calling. Along with, I don't believe in email marketing. I don't know about you, but I really detest every morning having to go through 30 emails who politely tell me, if you don't want to hear from me, please unsubscribe. No, I don't want you to subscribe me in the first place.
I never wanted to hear you in the first place.
So, yeah, don't get me wrong. First of all, the team that I have are generating good leads themselves.
Yep.
I don't have confidence. I've never believed in cold calls. when I used to have to coach lawyers and accountants on how to sell,
Wow.
because they were very, very uncomfortable with it. And basically, what I used to tell them is that I want you to think about how you're going to get your next life partner. So if you call 100 people and one of them say, yes, I'd like to be your life partner, I think you should be a little bit worried, because that's probably not the person you want. So don't try and do that. Don't go and send out 1,000 emails saying, hey, I know you're looking for a life partner. How about me? Because I just don't think that you're going to be possibly mildly surprised with that. But I do think that that's had its day as well. The email marketing, I think, has had its day. But what you do is actually get introductions. How did you find your partner? Somebody knew that you were single, a friend, and they might have introduced you to their friend. Or you went to a party. You didn't go to a party on your own and go walking up to people and say, hi, I'm a perfect life partner from you. You don't. You do it in a different way, and you get introduced to people by friends to say, hey, you really need to talk to Matthew. You two would get on really well. It's the same thing in sales. Then you get the people who believe in you to introduce you to people who actually need you. And I used to say, you really have loyal, trusted people if they would introduce you to their brother or their sister. So if you're in a business, do not expect anybody to introduce you unless they truly trust that you're going to deliver a great service. So if we've got, and we do have, 95% satisfaction level with our clients, then there's 95% of our clients that would enthusiastically refer you on to somebody else. So there's other ways to do that as well.
Yeah, very cool. So do you have a program inside the business where you are asking for those referrals ongoingly, or do they just seem to come in?
No and yes. I'm embarrassed to say, no, we don't have a program, but we do have a relationship with our clients with different ways, and the smart salespeople use that to get introductions.
So are your salespeople involved? Are your salespeople involved after the sale as they sort of carry into account management or account?
Typically, no, but they're encouraged to stay in contact and encouraged to see if they can be introduced to somebody else. We've got a different account management process to make sure that you're using our software to its best level. But the smart salespeople will just catch up occasionally and find out how everything's going, and you'll get an opportunity to find out whether there's somebody else that they think we could help.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. So just to wrap it up, so in relation to your business and thinking about the vision and values that you talk about, how often do you have to repeat yourself in those? Do you have to, because I've walked into businesses and they've got our vision and values are in a very dusty frame on the wall, and you walk in, and I've actually walked into sales rooms as the person who's going to fix things or whatever my role was at that time. And I just know they're not living those. I know you spoke about living them. How often do you have to repeat those?
Such a brilliant question. So whenever I was coaching, I made a rule that you were not allowed to put your vision and values up on the wall. You needed to say it at least 10 times a day. If you weren't saying it 10 times a day, then you weren't living it. And I remember my first client as a business coach, I made that rule. And one of the people who worked for me in a previous job started to work for my client about 12 months into me coaching him. And I went over and sat next to Lee and said to Lee, oh, how's things going? She said, great. I said, tell me, what's the vision of Company X? And she said, it's on the coffee cup. I know, because I'd said to this client, you can't put it up on the wall. He smugly said to me, I didn't do that. I put it on everybody's coffee cup. So she said, I can remember what ours was when we worked together, but I can't remember that one. So I pulled her coffee cup out, and she said, "Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, I remember now." To answer your question, this morning I told you I had that meeting with the sales team in the US.
Yeah.
I actually said we deliver answers to customers through whatever channel they want to ask the question, by being the easiest system to use, the easiest system to manage, and the easiest people to work with, more than 20 times in the hour. And I said to them, "I don't know whether you've noticed how many times I've said that," and they laughed. And I said, "Because that's what we do." I don't believe putting it up on the wall. In fact, it works against you. It gives you this inflated belief that people are going to actually read it. It becomes noise. Nobody reads the things that are on the wall as you walk past.
No, not at all.
And so everybody knows easiest system to use, easiest system to manage, and easiest people to work with. Because when somebody does something great, I actually reinforce it. That's the way we become the easiest people to work with. And the team throw it back on me all the time. They're always saying, "Well, if we're going to be the easiest system to use, we need to be focusing on this, bro." And the same thing with delivering the answers to customers. I've had my dev team saying, "Well, why would we do that? That's not anything to do with delivering answers to customers." And that's the thing that business owners have to do, and that is not chase shiny things. They actually have to remember exactly what they're here for. And if you say it often enough, your team reminds you, because, CEOs are only human. You see a bit of revenue and you think, "Oh, I might go chasing that." And your staff will remind you not to.
Absolutely brilliant. 5 is the answer. How many times you've said it during this conversation?
Oh, right.
And so, well, you know what? Let me check that in the post edit.
Thanks,
look, really appreciate the conversation today. It's been fantastic. I've got lots of great things out of you, but really what I like is the fact that you've taken those vision points, because I'm guilty as myself. I've got it. It's in a document, mission, vision, and values. It's emailed to everybody when they first come on board. It's never spoken of again.
No,
So
not going to happen.
Thank you.
Awesome,
It's
mate.
not going to happen.
Yeah, and
thank you very much.
Let's catch up within the next week or so. I think there's some work you and I can do together.
Oh, perfect. The podcast is working.
Thanks,
See you, mate.
Catch you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.